Hi folks, John Cordisco here with the much anticipated FIDE World Candidates Final Tournament currently being played in Russia. 8 great players, 3 former world champions. It's going to be a great match. The winner of this match plays Magnus Carlsen for the World Championship. Don't miss any of this action. Hi folks, John Cordisco back again with another great chess video for you. Sorry for sounding a little nasally, I've got a cold. Anyway, welcome to my 200th video. Boy, I'll tell you, it doesn't seem like that long ago when I first started, but I'm still going at it. So I'm celebrating my 200th video with a heck of a game. Round 7 of the FIDE Candidates Final Tournament, currently being played in Russia. The winner of this tournament plays Magnus Carlsen for the World Championship. It's between Vladimir Kramnik, former world champion as white, and Mamedyarov as black. It's a heck of a game. Let's get to it. It's going to be a Queen's Gambit declined. We'll just go through the opening here because this isn't really about opening theory. E3, Queen A5, Bishop D3, C4, pushing that light squared bishop away. Doesn't have many spaces for this poor light squared bishop to go. He goes to F5. White castles, excuse me, black castles, white castles. Rook to E8. Right now I've got my Fritz 13 computer on off screen. It's maybe a quarter pawn advantage for white. Actually, it's funny, when you first put on Fritz, it's about a third of a pawn advantage for white even before they move. So knight goes to D2. I'm not sure on the why that move is must be part of theory, I'm sure. The top 2 selections for the computer are H3 and bishop to H4. So that must be some kind of new theory, Kramnik or something Kramnik did in his preparation. G6, kicking the bishop. Bishop takes, knight takes. The bishop doesn't take. Of course, the knight's in pre. As you can see, the G-pawn's been moved, so the knight's just hanging. So the knight takes. H4. Well, I'll tell you, Kramnik's going after it. He's pushing it. He's going neck and neck here with Anand, and right behind him on their heels is Aronian. So there's 3 unbelievably great players. B5. Still about a third of a pawn advantage, just under a half for white, nothing serious. A4, interesting move. Bishop takes, pawn takes. Not as good as queen takes, because after B4, queen to C1, bishop A6, and white's on his heels. He's getting pushed back. After B takes, though, B4, C takes, queen takes. New pass pawn for black. Here it is here. We'll see how it works out for Mamedyarov. Knight to B1. He's rerouting the knight. Queen goes back to D6. Gets right out of the fray there. Knight to C3, which is the reason why he rerouted the knight. That's a good spot for that knight. It hits the backward pawn on D5, and also it's a blockader for the C pawn. Knights are excellent blockaders. Queen to C6. Sorry for the sniffles there. Got a bad cold. Other rook on F to B1. Bishop A6. Queen to D1. F6, kicking the bishop. Bishop has to go back to F4. Rook A to D8. Queen F3, hitting that backward D5 pawn. Moves the knight. So now you have the queen and the rook guarding the D pawn. Bishop h6, hitting the knight. King f7. It's maybe 3/4 of a pawn advantage for white, but this is an interesting position. That black king is in a weird spot, especially with queens on the board. Rook to b2. Knight to e6. Now Kramnik doubles up the rooks on the b file. After rook a to b1, knight to g7. You gotta be careful. That dark squared bishop might get trapped. We'll have to see how this works out. g4. That's pretty optimistic by Kramnik. He's going for it. Gosh, I remember the candidates tournament from last year when Kramnik tied Magnus Carlsen and lost on tie breaks. He really pushed too hard the last game, and I think he's very well prepared. He sees this as his last chance. He won the World Cup to qualify to get in here. He probably would have made it by rating anyway. I believe he's number 3 rated in the world now. I think Kramnik is really, really looking to get another shot at the title. King goes back to g8. Queen to f4. He's edging that queen up. King goes back to f7. e4. Now, prior to that, the computer suggested king to g2 for white, or king to f1, and rook to b4 are the 3 candidate moves. They're fairly close in score. I think this e4 move is very ambitious. It dropped down the score to 0.00. And the computer suggests knight to e6, and that's exactly what black did. Tiny, tiny advantage right now for white. E takes. I think worth looking at was queen to e3. That was worth considering. After e takes, knight takes, pawn takes the queen. Kind of a weird exchange of queens. g5. Now that dark squared bishop looks like he's in a jam. H takes, F takes. Of course, he's really not. But white goes c7. And right now, it's about a half a point advantage for Mamedyarov. I think Kramnik is just pushing too hard. Now, this is a very, very strange position. For those of you that are counting material, white's up a pawn. Rook to d6. Bishop takes the pawn. Now the knight's hanging. Knight checks. Is he losing a piece? King d5. Oddly enough, black's got a piece for 2 pawns with a tiny advantage. Look at that pawn on c7. Holy crow. Bishop c8. I mean, what would you do here as black? Seriously. This is tough. Now comes the rooks. Rook to b8. That's the logical and obvious move. Rook to f6. Not as good as bishop takes, because after f4, bishop c8, f takes, and that's a big advantage for white. Big advantage for white. After rook to f6, rook to a8, rook to f4. The computer calls for right now is f3, reinforcing the g4 pawn. And that's what Kramnik does. Interesting enough, though, rook takes a7, loses to check, king h1, knight f3, rook a6, rook e to g8, rook checks, king takes, knight checks, rook takes, and you can see it's dismal. White's going to get mated here. Rook d1 mate. Rook takes f3. Black wins a piece. d6. Bishop takes. Look, how crazy is this? Look at these pawns. Rooks are disconnected now. This rook is hanging on A8. Rook takes. If rook had taken, excuse me, if rook had taken here, that loses to rook takes, rook, king f1, and that loses for black. After bishop takes g4, rook takes, king takes, after bishop takes g4, rook takes, king takes, rook checks, king f7, rook d8. Great move. Great move there. Remember, black's up a full piece. Bishop h3. And this bishop's doing great duty. Guarding this diagonal, I'll tell you. King to h2. Rook takes c3. d7. Here it comes. Rook c2 check. King g3. Rook g2 check. And this is where Kramnik stumbles. King to f4 is the move. Kramnik goes king to h4. Bishop e6. Rook to f8 check. King takes. Pawn queens check. King to f7. Instead he goes g7. Amazing blunder. At move 49 for Mamedyarov. Amazing blunder. He should have went to f7, then after king to h5, king to g7. He might be able to survive this. Probably not, but it's way better than it turned out. Because after the pawn queens, bishop takes, queen takes, it's a queen and a pawn against rook, knight, and 3 pawns. Could he maybe draw it? Who knows? Queen to b7. Excellent move. Game is over at this point. Knight checks. I think Mamedyarov thought that he had a mating net on the Kramnik's white king. It just didn't have it. Queen takes the knight. Rook checks. King to g5. h6 check. King to f4. Rook checks. And then he resigned on move 53. Unbelievable game back and forth. Granted, there were big mistakes made at the end, but it was a hell of a game to watch. I watched it on YouTube. If you go to the FIDE channel, FIDE has its own channel. This is round 7 action. Kramnik wins. Hell of a game. Look for more action from the FIDE's candidates final tournament coming up. And I want to celebrate my 200th video. Thank you to all my subscribers and my viewers. I very much appreciate it. If you think, folks, that chess is just a game, you're not playing it right. Take care, folks. Bye-bye.